I don't know if this will be the saddest episode ever, but it's not going to be a happy one.
Yep.
For a second, I thought we were wearing the same shirt, and that made me happy. But it turns out we're not.
No,
you're wearing
I
a
wore that
Belching
the other
Beaver
day.
shirt, though. That makes me happy. And
Yeah.
what was the name of this script? I'm wearing a shirt that you made even before the Belligerent Beast podcast existed.
Yeah.
That is the OSU diagonal block script from the 80s that you repurposed into a shirt.
Yeah, it was
something
late
like that.
70s or early 80s. It was like a 1-year helmet logo.
Right. And it looks
Yeah.
more. It honestly looks more like it's in line with like Oklahoma State's branding values, but it does look sweet. And also, it's just like a great shirt. Like you put this on a great shirt.
Yeah. Shout out
held
to
up.
my
It's held up
father-in-law for hooking
several
up
wash
a free T-shirt and print for me.
A free custom print from Nike.
Yeah.
So shout out to the father-in-law. Yeah, I think this will be a pretty sad episode, and we're kind of beholden to record it because we can't really act like nothing was happening this week. I feel guilty because for a number of reasons, we've struggled to nail down a recording time this week. And obviously, several days ago, Talia von Oelhoffen entered the transfer portal, which of course we'll address. Multiple men's basketball players entered the transfer portal, which we will address. But it had been somewhat quiet since that initial wave. And when we were thinking, we normally record the show, but to me it hadn't happened when we normally were talk about recording the show on Sunday nights and Monday nights. And I was like, well, there's nothing urgent. And honestly, nothing's happening right now. Maybe we give it another day. And then, of course, within that day, Timea Gardiner entered the transfer portal, which sucks. And then today, if you had given me 100 guesses, and maybe every Beaver fan 100 guesses of who would next enter the transfer portal, I don't know if any one of us would have guessed Damien Martinez.
No.
So that's where we are tonight. It is Tuesday, April 9th. It's approximately 8:12 p.m. Pacific time. And Damien Martinez has announced plans to enter the transfer portal when the next football transfer portal window opens on April 16th. So that's what's happening. We are here. This is the 136th episode of the Belligerent Beefs podcast. This will probably be more of a... We have it divided into segments a little bit, but I think this is just going to be us sharing thoughts at the time they come out. I will mention that it is just JP and I tonight. Our beloved dear friend, Benjamin Lawrence Sebastian Wehage, and his family experienced a loss in their family this week. So we are, of course, letting Benny take all the time he needs to recuperate from that. So
Sending our love, send a prayer, send vibes, send whatever way in which you express love. I know Benny's been on social and interacting with people, so feel free to send him a DM, send him a note. Just let him know that you're thinking of him. I know he will appreciate that, which is never news that you want to hear for people you care about. But I hope also at least gives us a smidge of perspective as we talk about the decisions of young student athletes on where they will compete. But I also don't want to diminish the feelings that I know many in the fan base are having right now. So yeah, man, JP, it is great to see you though. You are a sight for sore eyes, my friend. This is Thank you.
This is what I need after a long day of just weird and not great news coming across the Twitter feed.
Yep. Yeah, I appreciate that. It's good to see you too. I think that this will be a little bit of therapy for everything that just seems like the avalanche of all this news over the last, I don't know what, 2 weeks. Well, what Talia entered on the.
Talia entered essentially a couple days after. It feels like crazy. We're recording for the first time since Talia announced.
Yeah.
So she entered like a week
cavalcade.
ago, 8 days ago. And since then, if you think about like the loss of, I mean, I think that they're all just like great people, great humans, but that in itself is a big loss. But just what it looks like optics wise, it's just hard to swallow. And for a fan base university that's just been beaten down, over the last year and a half, almost 2 years now, it's painful. It stings. It really stings. And so I'm looking forward in a way to talking through our feelings, but it's not going to be an easy one. And I don't think it'll be an easy listen either. I don't think anyone wants to kind of relive this last week, 10 days. And I don't blame you, but hopefully we can offer a little solace within here as well. And maybe some perspective and some hope, because you can't spell chop 'em without it, Terry. That is science.
You can't spell. I was just about to say, I don't know if I have hope, but it's right there. I'm looking at, I have 2 hams lined up for me. One in a belligerent Beavs koozie, the other in an OSU old school Benny koozie. And the first one has chop 'em, and right there in the middle is the word hope. So this is a hope forward podcast, and we're going to try our best to convey some of that hope. We'll get into this and maybe chop it. I think we'll talk a lot of football tonight, because we haven't talked there just hasn't been a ton of news out of spring camp. It's just been like, oh yeah, things are fine. The guys like Bray, the team looks sharp. The showcase is on 420, which is great for more reasons than one. And there hasn't been thankfully, there hasn't been crazy injury news. There hasn't been oh man, actually, this miracle worker that we've been sold in Trent Bray is full of shit, and now a bunch of guys are going to transfer. It's just been kind of quiet out of the football program, which has given us time to, cover this Elite Eight run, cover this incredible baseball team we have that will be incredible for this year. We're following that closely, and looks like the Beavs are beating the Pilots right now 11-8 in the 8th inning. So hopefully that's a 6th straight win for the boys tonight.
And shout out Trav. Breaking
shout out Trav. We got to talk about Trav for setting multiple records. The home run record and the total bases record in the same game. So his 11th career triple. Travis Bazzana is like the Caitlin Clark of Oregon State baseball.
Of college baseball.
Of college baseball. of all baseball.
Yeah. Of all the history of baseball.
Caitlin Clark was on SportsCenter today, and she mentioned, they were like, who are your biggest inspirations? And she talked about Maya Moore, and she talked about Don Staley, and then she's like, and also just Travis Bazzana, this Australian baseball player who really needs to be the number 1 pick. I just spent some time playing basketball in Cleveland, and Cleveland's baseball team needs to draft this guy number 1.
Yeah.
Caitlin may not have said that, but she was thinking that. I'm pretty
definitely.
sure of anyway.
That's how I read it too. I read that situation the same way. So we can't be wrong. Some call Babe Ruth, the Travis Bazzana of his era. So exactly. I get it.
They were calling him that in the 20s too. Yeah. It's weird. Yeah. You go back and hear some of those sound bites. There were some soothsayers.
They were even saying how noise Babe Ruth played.
Yeah. Exactly.
They're like, he's so nice. I wish, Benny, we need you to maybe just plug a noise there. That'd be good.
Exactly. The Benny's absence is felt in a number of ways.
Yes, very much.
But we love him dearly, and we love you dearly, listener. Thanks for tuning in. I do think we can kind of dive in here. I am gonna say I'm going to belligerently insist that we do a Reagan beer segment and also refer to it as the Reagan beer segment. It is unfair for Reagan for me to speculate on any decision she's made, but I'm calling this the Reagan beer segment while we can, damn it. And I hope that we can call it that for much longer, but just in case this is the last time, the 2 aforementioned hams that are keeping me company that I will raise to everyone who calls Oregon State home. But JP, what are you sipping on with me on this somewhat somber occasion for Beaver Nation here?
Maybe I'll instill a little fun in this. This is a North Park Beer Company beer. I picked it up again at Function PDX Northeast this weekend, and they had a couple cans left, and I really liked it. It's got like a Homer Simpson, or it's got a Simpsons vibe, like Bart Simpson's vibe.
Oh, with that chalkboard. Yeah.
And
are they writing "You can't spell Chopham without hope" over and over and over again on the chalkboard?
No, and maybe they'd believe it if they did. But
that might be our next shirt.
Yeah. It does say the name of the beer. Well, first, it's a double dry hopped West Coast IPA, 6.8% alcohol by volume. I was going to have a more celebratory, fun beer tonight. Maybe I'll save it. Maybe I'll out it. I don't know. But it's a triple hazy, and I wanted to get back in the groove because it's been a while since I've been on the wagon, and it just felt like things were coasting pretty good until this week. And now I'm just, I don't know. I don't know what I'm going to do. But this is North Park Beer Company again, and it's called Mess with the West, Die Like the Rest. So
Ooh.
I felt more fitting with this one.
Yeah.
Don't fuck with
I like
us.
that. I like that. Because everyone else is pretty much abandoning the West besides Wazoo.
Mm-hmm.
So we can co-opt and take ownership over a whole direction. We own like a fourth of all compasses now.
Yeah, the W, that's ours.
Yeah,
and
that is
Wazoo.
ours.
Yeah, and that makes more sense for Wazoo since it.
Yeah,
their
and if San
name
Diego
starts with a W.
State, Fresno State, if they want to hang out with us too, but that's probably for a speculative episode for another time. All right, well, cheers, my dude.
Well, what are you drinking?
I'm drinking hams. I mentioned again. But in this sweet throwback belligerent beeves koozie, which has the original Chopham mark on the back, which was when we realized that you can't spell Chopham without hope.
As we looked at
After
our
spelling
beers,
Chopham for several years, we had to look at it. It was like, whoa, it says hope in the middle.
Oh.
And anyway,
speak it into existence, please.
Speak it into existence. I think today's been just, what a weird day online this has been. Once the Martinez news was all but confirmed, I've kind of just stayed away from it. I saw Pete Thamels reporting that Dame was leaving and that he stood to make $400K this year. I saw Dame's agent dispute that number rather aggressively.
I think he disputed that it was being, reported.
The way it was reported that way. Like, I don't know that it was like, I still don't understand the inner workings of NIL and collectives enough to know how these things work. I don't think there was a briefcase of $400,000 in cash with Dame's name on it, and all he had to do was play football for Oregon State to collect. No. But maybe there was a plan in place.
Well, there's some nuance to all this too, and maybe we can talk about it. But yes, it wasn't just a briefcase of of cash. It wasn't a lump sum paid out over X terms. There was obviously future earnings potential involved in some of these numbers. There was assets that were gifted that were probably tallied as the same value or within the same value of that number. And I'm very curious as to how Damo got the number.
I am curious about that too. And it came out kind of as like people were like, well, what the fuck is the point of the Damnation Collective if players are going to leave? And like, what am I donating money for? What are we raising money for if this person who we designated as the priority could leave? And Dame has said as much. He's similar to Talia that NIL is not the factor here. It's not about the bag. I know he elaborated with you that there are big reasons, personal reasons, and some smaller reasons. It's not just one thing. So we don't have anything concrete to go off of. There's only speculation, and speculation and stuff like this is always difficult, and I don't ever want to say like I know what these kids are going through or what is influencing these decisions. But there are other extenuating circumstances that make the decision a little more heartfelt on the fan base. And I think we can start with Dame too, is that Dame has been made by the athletic department, and also I will say, I say this with love for Dame, by him himself, as sort of the poster child for loyalty in the most uncertain era of Oregon State athletics history. And I think that's fair. He tweeted as much when Jonathan Smith left. He doubled down on being like how he's here for the long haul. Oregon State gave him a chance to shine, so he's going to keep rowing the boat. I'm not sure all the exact wording of that since deleted tweet, but there are multiple instances of just being like, I'm here. Like, this is where I'm
not
at.
leaving.
And I think part of this is there is a good chunk of time where Oregon State fans were waiting for the other shoe to drop. From the death sentence on August 3rd, 2023, through a pretty successful football season, at least through the first 10 games of it. And it kind of felt like that shoe was dropping with the Smith departure. But hiring Bray quickly and the way the team responded to it, the way players like Dame reacted to it and sort of, for lack of a better phrase, pledged their fealty to this coaching staff, to this program, to this place. And then we saw the pretty good transfers and other recruits come in. That was like, oh, maybe the shoe's not dropping. It's like, just kidding. You can navigate these difficult waters that maybe 4 or 5 months ago you didn't think you could. And now we're 3 months beyond that, 4 months beyond that. And I know these aren't the exact words, but the way it hits is, JK, I'm leaving anyway.
Yeah.
And that is after months of the university, the student body, the alumni, the fans trying to like drum up passion and like, hey, we can get through this together. And there's been just sort of a call to action among Beavs everywhere, which is what can you do in these uncertain times? You can go to their NIL page and you can buy merch. You can be vocal about your support for them on social media. You can show up to games, show up and be loud. You can donate. You can do all of these things. And all of these things, I would say, Oregon State fans have done in spades. And what's happening now with this week is just kind of proof that none of it matters. Like, nothing that we can do can help keep beloved players here or keep these teams as competitive as we believe they should be.
Yeah, I mean, this was the death blow to fan involvement, not just at Oregon State, but I think there are other schools who feel the same, grim reaper of college athletics breathing down their neck. And they're thinking, what do we do? How do we keep our programs? How do we keep our players? I know, we'll donate to our collectives. We'll donate to our schools. We'll get season tickets. And they're watching this too. They're watching this unfold too. And I think that this was the final nail in the coffin where people will have to look at this from like a real clean perspective and say, it is out of our control now. 100,000% out of our control. There is really no impact that fans can have to retain players and build programs. It's not like it used to be. It isn't that the stadium gets packed and the fans are passionate and loud. Like, those used to be things that players talked about why they liked their situation. And it didn't matter what level of program you had as long as they felt loved. And now I'm sure that's still in consideration with many players and makes this decision incredibly difficult for some more than others. But it's not the decide all be all decision factor that it used to be. And I think we need to accept as fans that that's long gone. It is long gone, because nowadays it's about TV and money. in one capacity or the other, or both. And we can't handle anything with that because it's not in our domain as fans. Unless you're like an executive producer at Fox or for Fox Sports, there's not a whole lot you're going to do as a fan. So it is the way it is now. And like it's the new normal. It doesn't make it hurt any less. I kind of want to talk like about Damien specifically, because I know this one's going to cut the hardest for fans.
Yeah,
but
we can keep talking about Damien specifically.
But I do want to point out that I really don't think there was any malicious intent for Damien being here after Smith left. I think that it for all purposes considered, he wanted to be in Corvallis at Oregon State. I think that pill was probably a hard one for him to swallow when he was maybe putting on a face or a front to try to keep the fans at bay and content. Maybe not, but I think that it was it was easier to swallow because I know for a fact that this would have been his last year regardless. This was
sure,
but beyond speculation of his talents and what could happen after he's draft eligible. This was his last year in college, period.
And he should go pro after this year.
Yeah, I agree.
Zero issue with that.
And so my thought is I think that there were other things at play, maybe other factors outside of football in general that that forced his hand in a way, but also not really forced it. I mean, he made his decision. He's a man. He knows that, but made him reconsider the things that he had said and the way he had felt up until this point. I don't think that there was any intent by him to, take what he could from our collective before bolting. I don't think that there was any intent about leaving for more money. Actually, I know that for a fact as well. I don't know what he was fed to leave. If there was something that we could pinpoint, it could be, again, like a variety of reasons, and it's not worth speculating over because what's done is done. But again, I don't think that there was malicious intent here. I'm fucking bummed. I'll be the first to admit it. I am so goddamn saddened by him leaving, and it's not because I'm thinking, oh no, our football team's gonna suck without Damien Martinez. Like, I know our running back room's deep.
No, weirdly, it's the best position group that this could happen to. But it's not really just about the X's and O's of it.
Yeah, it's the optics. Like having this guy at one point almost lay down the sword for us. Yeah. I mean, he was a martyr in that way. Like, nah, I'm good. Oregon State's where I want to be. See, people, Oregon State is a place where somebody like me and my caliber of a student athlete wants to be. And I don't think he's changed his mind on this is a place I like to be. I think that there are factors that are making him believe or feel that there is something or somewhere else where he could be at and be better. I mean, it's not, I don't want to speculate too deep, but.
Right. To not get into too much of the hot take Twitter crowd, you and I both believe that there's basically a 0% chance that place is Michigan State. And
I know that. I know he is not going to Michigan State.
Right. And I know that's the
State.
Obvious sort of thought for the tortured Beaver fan. I don't blame anyone whose mind went there. I could say I think there's a 100% chance that he plays for any other school. I think the reason this does hurt is because I don't think there was a lot of naivete among the fan base or even the university and the administration on August 3rd, 2023. Or even June 30th, 2022. I think a lot of Beavs looked at the writing on the wall and went, oh shit, we're fucked. We're done. This is it. Yep. This is a bottom 5 sports day of my life. I said that to non-Beav fans who are trying to calm me down and be like, it's not going to be bad. I said, shut the fuck up. This is a bottom 5 sports day of my life.
Now what do you rate that day?
Let me fume. I don't. Well, there's multiple days now. I don't know which one's worse. At first, I said this is the worst sports day of my life that doesn't involve a Vikings NFC championship. And now I'm looking at that, I was like, well, a couple of those Vikings NFC championships, we were really getting blown out. And I kind of just like recovered like by halftime, just knowing it wasn't going to happen. To tell young Terry, like, hey, there are going to be things you are more mad about, like, I'd have been like, shut the fuck up. That's not going to happen. Dude, like, so I think it's sort of it feels like a long con and not one that Dame's pulling off. I'm not saying that Dame's the one that's pulling it off, but like, so many things have been taken from Oregon State since June 30th, 2022. And I know there are fans of other teams who listen to this podcast who will try and downplay like this type of sensationalist talk or whatever. But honestly, so many things have been taken from OSU, and none of it has been OSU's fault. They've been betrayed. Best case you can explain it is they've been unlucky, but they've still had things taken. And it's happened slowly, but each time it's happened, there's been these other glimmers of hope, other glimmers of things to make you believe and to think the university, the athletic department, or at least a handful of programs can get through this time, and we'll look back on it and be like, oh yeah, that was fucked up, that was scary, but whatever, we're here now. And a constant, especially since August 3rd, 2023, has been Dame. The way in which he plays, the way in which he carries himself, the way he has stated his love for the university and his intention to stay here has been a constant. And that's been a life raft for Beaver fans. I use the life raft terminology because that is like the sinking ship metaphor is what's been used to describe the Pac-12, and all the treasonous 10 got their lifeboats and floated away towards the Midwest and the fucking Big 12, and
you're going
which
in
is
the
also
wrong
in the Midwest,
direction.
whatever. Yeah, and it's just like, but there was something to hold on to, and that was the boisterousness which with Dame proclaimed his loyalty to Oregon State. And he's not the only one. And also, he didn't sign up to be a martyr. He didn't sign up to be just this savior to come in and be like, hey, oh, like I'm just a kid from Texas, but yeah, I'll save this university in Corvallis. That's not his responsibility. But the way in which he played and how just damn good he is and how fun he is to watch, it gave Oregon State fans a reason to believe, when now I think it would have been easier to stomach if it had just been a fucking Band-Aid rip at the end of the season. Like, I'm out. Like, this guy's out, I'm out too. And we get to then process it that way. Like, why now is, I have my thoughts on now, and I'll share them because I know we don't want to too much. I think this is a draft thing. I think it's a going pro thing. I think there are good running backs in the NFL draft this year, and a running back is not going to get drafted in the first round. And I think there are whispers in Dame's ear about how if you want to get to be a second round pick, a third round pick, like maybe a first round pick, but probably not. He's probably not a first round pick because running backs just aren't first round picks.
Yeah.
And if that means if you want to be a second round pick, you need to be a top 3 running back in college football. And are you going to be perceived that way? Playing a Mountain West schedule that's broadcast on the CW? Maybe to some scouts, but probably not to draft Twitter or to just the other talking heads that cover the sports. You're not going to get a segment on ESPN College Game Day. We already know that they won't come to Corvallis, even if it's the best goddamn game in the nation, because they passed up on that twice last year. So I think that's the reason why. I honestly don't think it's more complex than that. And I don't necessarily think, like, say he's a Texas kid. I think the most obvious, without being like nefarious or tinfoil hat, whatever, like the Michigan State speculation is, I think the most obvious thing would be like him transferring to Texas or Texas A&M.
Oh no,
because we know A&M
Texas.
has
He's
bags.
following Silas. That's what my bet is.
If he if he goes to Texas, is he going to be like shocked? And if he shows out for Texas for a year,
it'll only be a year.
Exactly for this year, does that drastically improve his draft stock? That's something you can never really prove. And something I would tell these people, and this is going to come up in a conversation we have later tonight, is the scouts and the personnel of these professional teams are going to find you. Every single GM and every single member of his staff in the NFL could talk circles around us about Damien Martinez already and what he does on a football field. He doesn't need to go to Texas for that. But I understand why that is the assumption. I understand that why
he believes that.
Yeah.
I get why he believes that.
But you come back to Corvallis rush for 1,500 yards again. Like, you think anything else you could do would get you to be the draft pick that you want to be? Like, I get why you could start to think that, but yeah, I just don't know. I think it's an unfortunate reality that applies across the board with Oregon State sports right now. And I think this is what's influencing a lot of the women's basketball decisions too. But
it's going to be everywhere. We're not the only school that's going to fall victim to this new landscape. I know people know this, they've heard this, but I don't know how many people believe it, because we got dealt a bad hand first, and we've had to be pioneers in that way of what do we do? How do we react? How do we survive? This is going to be the norm for nearly every school going forward until there's regulation around transfers, NIL, anything. This is the new norm. And I think we were maybe naive to ignore that or overlook it and then hope that we had this, lifelong black and orange bleeding beaver. and like, that's just not the right. It's not the reality of college athletics anymore. In any capacity, no matter what level athlete you are. And I think that the Texas, if it's Texas, whatever. If it's anything in Texas, I get it. Maybe some of the reasons why he felt the need to go are deeply personal, and maybe it has to do with being closer to home. Maybe it just has to do, I don't know, with something that's gone on in Corvallis. Like it's not worth speculating. It's not worth just assuming. This is like a dude's life, and we shouldn't be trying to pick it apart for the sake of analysis, whether it's us or any other fan. I get being frustrated, upset, and I'm not defending his decision by any means, but like picking it apart doesn't do anyone any good either.
No.
But there's got to be some clues, I guess, and this is the speculation part as to why now, which you had mentioned earlier. Like, why right now? Why 11 days before 420?
If you do this the day after the Sun Bowl, like, people are going to be pissed, but, like, sure, fuck it. Like, we're losing players left and right. We just lost 40-8. We don't even know who the position coaches are. Like,
ignoring anything he said since then. Why now? And that's where I think you might get clued in to more than just like now is finally the time that Texas threw him a bag or something, right? Like, that's the easy answer, and maybe the easy answer is the right answer. But in my mind, I'm starting to wonder, okay, let's do a little bit of a timeline here, right? Like, if you want to know why now, let's do a little bit of a timeline. Well, the team broke practice for spring break. They returned to spring break last week. They came back to practice and had, a couple of practices before the weekend?
Yeah, and then one that was close to the media.
And then he missed a practice. And then today, he later came out that he's no longer with the program. But from what I've been able to gather, the players knew much earlier than they let on. Some knew that this was coming and that there was a chance that he'd change his mind, but they also knew that this was in the works. Others knew that this was going to go down well before they spoke to other media members or said anything otherwise publicly. So, again, I go back to why now? Why before the spring game, right? Why a week into post spring break practice for spring practice.
Right.
And
because I know it, like another window is opening, so we're going to see this across the college
it's going to
football
happen in 1 week.
landscape.
It's in 1 week. It's in 1 week.
But none of the things that are holding Oregon State back are new, which is why the timing is peculiar. Like,
yes, exactly.
We essentially got the death penalty on August 3rd.
Yeah.
And we got the pre-death penalty June 30th, 2022. And he's stuck throughout. This is like, we loved him. He was in like our fucking Twitter spaces, like talking with fans and stuff after June 30th, 2022, like before he played for Oregon State, and just seemed to be this player who was about his business, and I'm not going to say didn't care about the spotlight, but just sort of perceived the spotlight in a different way. And he was so awesome almost immediately. And he has it's two great seasons. You had guys like Steven Jackson coming back to Corvallis and talking about how great of a running back like this guy is.
They had an NIL deal together.
And then just like almost a near complete spring season into this new era of us being relegated to a Mountain West schedule, for lack of a better term. And like nothing came up, at least publicly, until just now, and now it's the divorce. And it's that on top of all of the other transfer news, which is why like Dame's gonna be probably unfairly criticized and attacked, and I don't want him to be. I don't want any young person to be turned into the Yoko Ono of this situation.
Yeah.
Because that's not fair. But what I think these athletes need to understand is you are part of you're playing for a fan base that has had everything taken from them, and just about every week that goes by, something else is getting taken from them. So you are not the first person to leave. You are just the latest person to leave on top of a mountain of other bad news. And even right now, you can still go online and buy a shitload of Damien Martinez Oregon State merch. And a lot of people bought that. A lot of people bought
the school has put up giant, like 20-foot posters,
exactly,
banners on Research Stadium with them on it.
And I will, just to sort of blur the lines of how we're interpreting all of this. Like, I will love Talia von Oelhoffen as a basketball player for the rest of my life. Talia's pinned tweet until a week ago was the Talia von Oelhoffen shirts that were the jerseys of the great Oregon State women's basketball jerseys that we loved so much, that a shitload of people bought all year. And it was her pinned tweet until last week. Not trying to come at Talia for anything like that, but like, so many fans have done what they have been called to do here in this new era, being like, oh, I can directly support a player I love by buying their shit, by going to the games, wearing their shit, posting me on social media, wearing their shit, rocking their shit outwardly. And you have to understand, if you're an athlete right now, for the Oregon State fan, none of what they're doing is making a difference. And that is why you see the hysteria. And that is why it's like, yeah, you can sit down and talk to me like, this is actually how it makes more sense for the running back room. And you have Anthony Hankerson and Isaiah Newell, and you can do more like creative things when when it becomes like a running back by committee as opposed to a bell cow and stuff. And it's just like, I don't care about that right now. I don't care, because what we thought on June 30th, 2022, that we were being put in a position where nothing we do matters, is now coming to fruition. And it has been such a long and arduous journey to get here. And so many people have been saying, like, we're going to figure this out. We're going to figure this out together. We're going to ensure that Oregon State athletics is a premier destination for young student athletes, and that where we compete at a great level nationally. And it doesn't matter. We can go to the Elite Eight with an entire team of eligibility for next year that could walk to the Final Four. And it doesn't
That's
matter.
Already
projected. We have a running back who can get 2,000 yards by week 8. And it doesn't matter. Nothing matters.
Yeah.
Because some network executive suits decided that it didn't. And
and agents.
We are now at the
Don't
point
forget
of
that
it's been 20 months where the people and we were maybe a little. I think this show was probably more night on the night because we just try to tend towards the positive side and say we can't spell Chopham without hope. Hope, Beaver fans, hope. Come on, just hang on to hope.
Thoughts and prayers for yourself.
We were on the more naive side, but it's been 20 fucking months of it just being like we can get through this together, and now it's like no, I don't think we can.
No, we can survive together. There's no getting past it.
There's surviving.
It's getting through it.
Athletics will take place at Oregon State University for a while. I have no doubt. But man, what is there for an Oregon State fan who said on August 3rd, we are fucked. There's no coming back from this. And you said, no, don't get ahead of yourself. We can do it. What do you say to that person now? Because there's nothing remaining. Like there's nothing tangible to actually hang on to. Outside the football team still could be pretty good.
Yeah.
Other teams still could be pretty good. The baseball team could go to Omaha this year. They could win the whole goddamn thing. But all of that transcends the situation that they've been placed in. And the people who have been, I think it's unfair that Damien and Talia and any other athletes have been made to be like martyrs for Oregon State fans, because that's not a burden that I think any young person should have to take on.
And let's put this out there that there has been no other athletes that have come through Oregon State that have had that burden put on them either.
No, because
so
it's all new.
Relate it to be like, well, like Gary Payton would have done it, or
no, you can't.
Ken Simonton could have done this. Like no, like there's no comparison to the absolute wrench thrown into their plans.
Right.
Like they didn't grow up in Portland or Corvallis or Salem or any other of the cities of Oregon that matter. They grew up elsewhere and made Corvallis their homes for college, and their affinity isn't the same. And I think that that's very clear nowadays. I don't think that that's a surprise to anybody that their affinity to Oregon State, and not just the players we're talking about, but players in general that didn't grow up as Beavers or understanding what it's like to be a fan of Oregon State. So yeah, they don't carry that same burden because they aren't from here, which is the norm in college athletics. They also they carry a new burden that other athletes have never had to carry because this is the first time this has ever happened. This is the only time this has ever happened. So now you're asking somebody from Louisville, Texas to carry a burden for the community of Corvallis and Oregon State University, something that he had been thrusted into as a 17, 18-year-old.
To transcend essentially what is a Mountain West relegation.
To transcend what is, corporate greed that is far beyond his
and Talia
control.
And
Talia as well.
And I have more to say in defense of those two when we move to the women's basketball part of things here. But I think we need to talk just, a little more football with it, just because
one thing I don't want to say is I will say, but I don't want to harp on Damien by any means. Like I don't think that he I don't think he specifically deserves the criticism. There are many other factors and people and forces at play that deserve far broader criticism. I agree that it's fair to criticize Damien about his positioning around sticking it out and Bray's my guy and all the other things that made you believe as a fan that he was in this for the remainder of his collegiate career, to walk that back still to this point without any sort of public acknowledgement or statement, at least clarification. There has been acknowledgement, but like it's if you got to also maybe think that there was something longer term at play that was just happening right under our nose, and like not tinfoil caps any of this, but like he didn't play in the bowl game.
Right.
There were reasons then, but don't they seem a little bit interesting now?
It's all of the way everything happened in December feels more peculiar now.
Yeah. But Damien be the first to tell you, like, everything that happened post Smith was right in line with what he was desiring for this program.
He's in the video of Bray being introduced, like the happiest motherfucker in the room. Yeah. Like I don't think any of that was fake.
No,
at all.
I don't think that Damien fakes happiness. I think he's naturally
right
an upbeat dude.
Right, and exudes joy, and I think that's part of the reason why this hurts for a lot of Beaver fans, and I hope he's not getting, attacked left and right on the internet. That's just kind of what happens on the internet these days. Not that that makes it right, but like he was just he was a beacon of joy and a thing for Beaver fans to hold on to. And I think a lot of us got to the point where we didn't think it would be taken away. I think maybe after this year, but we've had guys go pro before. No rational thinking human was mad at Brandon Cooks for going pro when he did. He had just won the Blitnikoff. He was a first-round pick.
What about Quiz?
I think some idiots gave Quiz shit for going pro when he did, but
there was only 60 people on Twitter at that point, though. So
there was only 60 people on Twitter at that point, and we were two of them, and Ocho Cinco was a third one. Oregon State was holding it down, dude. And with Quiz too, his running back thing, it's like you've got a shelf life. Playing the running back position, you've got a shelf life. And I think Damien just got the advice now that this is just me speculating. I don't know if Damien's going to keep listening to this show or not, but that going to somewhere bigger, grander, not playing on the CW, playing a seemingly stronger schedule than we're playing next year will help his draft stock. I do think it's as simple as that. And I think you can get on a soapbox in December and say, I'm not leaving. Like I'm going to be one of the good guys. I'm going to do this. But then almost 4 months later and reality sets in and it's like, oh yeah, like college football, greater college football, big college football, the suits at ESPN and the suits at Fox, the commissioners of the Big Ten and the SEC and all those assholes are literally trying to work towards our extinction. Why am I here? Like, I don't have to be here. 100 teams want me to play for them right now. 150 teams want me to play for them right now. Why do I have to be here?
Yeah, but I don't think it's that simple. I still don't. I'm not buying that it's that simple. I think that that's a big reason. I think somebody's been telling him, or he has come to the conclusion himself. I don't think that he's just a pushover that's going to just take somebody's word for it. But I do think that there's still a chance that maybe he just came to this realization himself. And whatever. I mean, that's his decision. He's a grown man. That's like he'll stand by it and he'll have to live with it. But let's be real. We were supposed to have Damien on this podcast 2 weeks ago. We were supposed to have him on this podcast last week. We were working on having him again on maybe today. This was in the works. And something felt odd now thinking back, even those couple of weeks, as to why it didn't happen. Because normally, he would have been all gung-ho on it. And so, I don't know. Maybe he was just still weighing his options at that point. Maybe he had already made up his mind. Maybe something happened right then and there that put a decision in front of him that was too difficult to make, and he had to sit on it. I just feel like trying to put everything in a bucket about like why people transfer and why people leave. Oh, what are they? A football player. Oh, and how good were they? They were one of the best. Okay, and they're leaving us in this situation. It must be for X reason, right? Like sure. That's I hear what you're saying. I don't think that you're doing this, but what I hear what you're saying is what I see others saying is the reason, and I don't think it's that simple. I think that the conference is a big deal, and as reality has set in for these players across all sports about what's about to happen, they're finally making a decision, and it's something that they've kicked the can down the road to decide, and it's too much for them to face. Not to say that they're weak or soft or anything like that, because this isn't what they signed up for, and I get it. But you're going to go and try to dig in. Everyone will. Fans do. I want to. And pinpoint the aha moment reason as to why somebody leaves. And I don't think it's that cut and dry. And I don't think it is as simple as something about exposure. I don't think it's something about optics with the conference. I don't think for most of our transfers that we've had leave in the last 10 days about NIL. Like I would bet my life that NIL had nothing to do with at least Timea, Talia, and Damien. I can't speak for men's hoops. They're in a way different stratosphere when it comes to circumstances.
Yeah.
But I can guarantee you that it wasn't a bag chase for any of them.
Right.
And if you really narrow down things, it might not be the only thing, but it is a conference thing, I think, first and foremost, and then you can extrapolate out from there. But like, yeah, I mean, from what I've gathered with Damien, for example, obviously exposure sounds like it's a big thing that he's been led or began to believe is going to be problematic next year if he stayed at Oregon State. The 400K thing is not accurate. Maybe it is in total value, but again, like it could very well be.
It's at least not as simple as the way it was reported.
Right. It wasn't a bag of cash. So even like it's not like somebody's going to him and be like, "Here's 600K cash. Here you go. Take it or leave it."
Hey,
but
for 600K, I'll enter the transfer portal. Yeah, Texas, if you want us to do a podcast about your fucking sports for 600K, I'll do it. Like and we all have a price.
Texas, you could pay me 600K to tell Terry to leave.
I've got a wedding to pay for, man. Come on.
Oh yeah, talk about stealing your shine, man.
Exactly, because that was all we were going to talk about on the show this week.
Yeah. If you 136 is pager code for wedding. If y'all don't remember, I don't actually know if that's true, but I'm glad you believed me that easily.
If you tell me anything about code or just like
pager code,
whatever
pager code, you don't know pager code?
I had a pager. No, I had a page. My sister's boyfriend gave me like his old pager. It was like he's like, I got a new one, but this one has like a month left on it, so you can have it. And I like brought my pager to school. And at one point, someone was like, "Who the fuck's gonna page you?" And I was like, "I don't know." But
some payphone might randomly call it.
I was in 6th grade, and I felt cool with that red translucent Motorola on my hip. That's what it was. That was the pager. We should go back to pager days, and then
you know what?
Give athletes pagers.
Let's see y'all send NIL deals or promises of NIL opportunities through pager code.
Make it so that like everything is completely fair game and open, but everything, absolutely everything, has to be negotiated and agreed to via pagers. That's the only method of communication.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, level the playing field.
Yeah, that would reunite Gen Z, Millennials, and Gen X. The Boomers would still hate everything.
Think about all of the Oregon fans that buy burner phones that would just start texting pager codes. They're the
There'd be so many burner pagers. Yeah, they would fund the pager resurgence.
Yeah,
and then
really,
we could all
they're the ones
that we would
funding
invest.
the burner phones at Fred Meyer, likely
because we would need to, we would know there'd be a lot more burner pagers in and around the area of Springfield, Oregon, and we'd make a killing. Jay, let's do that, and then
What
then Damien wouldn't have to leave because he would make $400K in cash.
Yeah, we'd make him a partner in our burner pager business.
Very quick, we've gotten some pretty good reports that Anthony Hankerson looks great in practice.
Yeah, but also I want to say
we've
got reports that maybe the offense also. Maybe the offense didn't fit Damien.
Maybe. I think it would though. I mean, I watched a lot of UCLA last year.
Well, I think he can fit in it, sure. But what I'm saying is he going to excel in it?
Yeah.
Does he feel confident in excelling in it? Maybe not. And maybe it took spring practice and
Gundy made some slapdick running backs look good. I'm just kidding. Sorry, Carson Steele. Please don't find me and beat the shit out of me because you totally did. But
he's related to Lexington
running backs who aren't nearly as talented as Damien did great things.
AP ZZ, he knows that one. Lex Steele.
So yeah, I think it's fine. This is the last we'll talk about, like, just unless some shell-shocking news about Damien's transfer comes out, this is the last we'll talk about it. And as we move towards the spring showcase actually happening, we'll talk more X's and O's. We'll have some guests on. We hope good things for Talise Fuaga, Katana Ladapo, Ryan Cooper Jr., Anthony Gould, and company in the NFL draft in April. We will talk about that when it happens at the end of the month. So yeah, good things for football, but I mean,
this is a tough cut, but it's also
the first cut is not the deepest, because this is the latest cut is the deepest, is what's going on right now.
Don't you dare! Don't even request it. I know you're trying.
I'm not requesting anything because we're recording later in the week, and I don't want to delay the editorial time, so I'm not requesting any 5 seconds this week.
All right, well, play in your heads, Beaver Fam.
I want this going up on Wednesday.
Last cut is the deepest. Damie, I know.
Can we switch gears to women's basketball?
Yeah.
Unless I didn't know if you wanted to talk.
No. But I will say, I think that this last point about Damien is, optics aside, talent aside, I think that the hardest part about this is that Beaver fans really love the dude off the field.
Absolutely.
It wasn't that they bought into anything that he was said about his sincerity and loyalty and everything else. I mean, that stoked the fire. But what I think it was that they just loved the dude in general. They loved the way he played football with a ton of joy. They loved how friendly and approachable and appreciative he was for fans and kids. And all of the reasons that Oregon State football has always felt like a family event, he embodied all of that. And that's almost a harder loss than what we've got on the field, given, one, the depth of our running back room, but two, you can only fall so far. And I think we've fallen about as far as we're going to be able to the point of where it will still matter if we were falling. It's like, at what point is it just dark and deep? And if you're 1,000 meters deep or 20,000 meters deep, does it really matter? No. So I don't think that anything can change how the level of depth of sadness that we're feeling at this point, and grief and frustration, but it hits harder because you can separate the kind of person that he was from football and off the field, and you'll miss that too. I think we all will. So it's a loss. It's a bummer. Good luck, man. Whatever. Like, I'm here for Beavs. So
yeah. No, that's well said. And I think the sentiments also apply to Talia von Oelhoffen and Timea Gardiner, who have officially entered the transfer portal. I think both of these hurt, again, for Beaver fans for a variety of reasons. I think different reasons. I'll start with Talia. I think she's really been the face of this program the last 4 years. I'm not down with the very public hate I've seen her get on social media.
Agreed.
As, like, these things happen and then people forget everything players have done the last 4 years. I think there's maybe a little bit of unfortunate timing because it was immediately after the Elite Eight, but also we just talked about Damien waiting 4 months. I think maybe just if you've made the decision, announcing the decision is a way of showing respect, or at least, limiting the damage or whatever. Mainly, Talia's gotten a bunch of shit for making the grass is greener where you water it comment moments after the loss to South Carolina. When I think, if you just look at the transcript of when she said that, and then also the Twitter announcement that she's leaving, like, yeah, I can see how on paper that led to the reaction it did from some fans. But I think you watch it, and she's clearly referring to the 4-year career she had. And I do think it matters
But she has her degree.
The having the degree does, I think, matters a little bit.
To me, it matters a lot, though. Like,
to me, it matters a lot. It's like
in any regular circumstance that she served her time.
Sure, yeah. And the only reason I say it matters a little bit is like because if someone stayed for 4 years and for one reason or another didn't fully complete the degree, I don't think that diminishes
no
time that they've
totally not
played in that role. So like that
4 years, 4 years in general is the thing.
Right.
And like I get it in this day and age where there's the COVID year and you can transfer as a grad student. Fine. But like go do what you want to do in that time. But like, yeah, you should reflect on it as like she gave us these incredible 4 years.
Well, and
she helped turn around this program. Like big time.
She did. Absolutely. And the less important thing, but for those who are pining for the good old days where players didn't leave or whatever, the only way Talia van Oelhoffen could have continued her college career if this was the pre-COVID way, pre-transfer portal way of doing things, would have been to go to another program as a graduate transfer. That's the only way she would have been able to keep playing college basketball beyond this year. It was that old grad transfer rule is once you fulfilled your time and your 4 years of eligibility, you could get a fifth year if you entered graduate school, but only at a different institution. So what she's doing isn't something that's like brand new. It's something that's been part of college athletics for a long time, and it's not an outright betrayal of Oregon State. What is more important is what Talia has done in 4 years at Oregon State. She was an incredible freshman on a good team that, stormed onto the scene a little bit and then punctuated a great freshman year with an outstanding performance against Oregon in the Pac-12 tournament that made us, JP, you and I, Benny as well, and then just everyone we interact with Beaver sports with, like, absolutely fall in love with her. And it's been a tough sled for her. Like, lots of injuries. The team has, underachieved at times, but she's had to overcome a lot, like, physically. Just think about how heartbreaking the end of last season was when she had to have season-ending surgery. So when you combine that with the fact that by the old way of doing things, like, her eligibility would have been done anyway, like, I don't blame Talia at all. And at this point, we still don't know where she's going. We don't know where Timea is going, which, I mean, might change opinions of things. But, like, Talia's played 105 games of basketball for Oregon State University and has had to gut through a lot of those games.
Yeah.
And has put in some pretty iconic moments. I will forever think of her as one of my favorite players ever, I think. And I really wish she was giving it one more spin as a Beav. But I get it. I get it to an extent. I do have some pushback on the reason for doing it. And again, I don't know the reason. That's poor use of words on my part. I don't know her reason for doing this. She has said that NIL has played zero part in it, and I believe her. That the reasons are personal, and I believe that as well. And we still don't know.
I believe there'll be clarity soon enough.
Sure. I think so too.
I think that there's more dominoes to drop.
There are more dominoes to drop, and sadly, we think that's going to be more women's basketball players. I do think with the dominoes that are dropping, though, Timea leaving breaks my heart to an extent, just because she's the highest rated recruit that Ruick's ever gotten. So I know recruiting ratings have changed years over years.
Not even close to the top 10 immediate impact players that Ruick's ever gotten. Just to put it out there. What I'm saying is,
but
what she's developed into
I know. Yeah, that's what I was going, like, she's become an insane defender.
Yeah.
Like, unreal. And that was not hyped up as one of her strengths coming into Oregon State. So part of me is just like, I know there's people pulling at these players left and right, and we're fucking podcasters. They don't care what we think or whatever. But, like, I worry for Timea's development, if that development will hit the same curve and crescendo
under other coaching staffs. Because under Ruick and Chatterton and company, like, what's happening is working. Like, she's becoming a WNBA lottery pick. I don't know that I can say that about anyone else. I think Reagan could be one, but Tamia's got a little bit, like, I think that Timea can defend the post and the perimeter in a way that Reagan can't, in a way that could push her to that top 4 spot one day.
Tamia's got the outside shot, plus she can create her own shot in the paint.
Right.
Just like Reagan, unmatched in the paint because she's clearly the leader.
I don't know who's coaching Timea next year, so I don't know how her game's going to develop. And I know she's not just going to go somewhere just to go somewhere, and all of those questions will be asked. But we know, man, playing for Ruick worked, and I think the pitch I would have made to all of these young players is just like, yeah, it's going to suck to be in the WCC, and there's probably no non-conference schedule that can make up for it. But
I think Ruick did that. And I actually feel bad for Coach Ruick because
I feel so bad for Ruick.
I mean,
I feel so bad for Ruick.
What he has done for these players, it's not reciprocated. Because his loyalty and belief in them and patience and being a master of his craft of putting people in situations that they can excel and succeed and grow in.
3 Elite Eights this decade too.
Has not been reciprocated in this new modern era of college athletics. Look, if you were going to ask any of the Final Four team about transferring, none of them would have talked about it. One, because no one wanted that in discourse. No one wanted to hear about that. Everyone was afraid to even bring it up. But two, if they even contemplated it, they had to weigh the option of sitting out a year. And in athletics, that is your own death penalty, sitting out a year, getting a year older, and not getting really a year better. So they were never able to consider that. But it doesn't mean that some of those players are more loyal, and maybe they were, but you can't just blanket, claim that all of them would have stuck around and stuck through this, and that team, those players would have come back and they would have gone for one more run. It's a different era, and yeah, you have to know that Ruick knows what's coming. He knew what came before it happened. There's no way he was caught off guard, because I think that these players have more respect for him than that. You don't think that Talia already had been talking to him about this is what I want to do, this is what I'm thinking of doing? You don't think that Timea had let him know, Coach, I'm weighing my options before I enter. I'm telling you, I'm weighing my options. But what this all comes back to really is that this entire system is so fucked. It is so fucked because players don't weigh their options unless they have options, and you don't have options unless somebody offers you something. So it might be an offer on the back of a napkin. It might be something that somebody whispered in your ear, but those are still options.
And the NCAA has no way of regulating that shit.
They can't regulate it. And so now they've got them. Now they can weigh this. They can sit on it. They can figure out what they want to do. I don't really comprehend what's happening with women's hoops yet. From what we have been told, is the biggest thing is the WCC. Yep. And that is honestly, for women's basketball, point blank, the biggest and probably only reason why anyone is leaving or has left. And we can get to the rationale why that might be smart of them, Terry. I know you've spoken about this to us privately in our Bebe's group chat, but this is existential right now,
right? Well, and
because the WCC is not something that this team is interested in participating in.
And that initial point was that the WCC hasn't generated a ton of WNBA draft picks. And I think Benny had that original point, and I corroborated it. But I will even push back on my own point there a little bit, that had this team played in the WCC next year, WNBA front offices aren't interpreting Oregon State as
a traditional WCC team. Like all good front offices that do their homework, they have dossiers on all the players.
But the players,
if you make the Final Four out of the WCC, you're doing just as much for your WNBA stock as if you finish fucking whatever in the Big Ten. And I know what you're about to say. Like, the players don't necessarily think in those terms, and that probably hasn't been harped on enough, or that the opportunities at these other institutions are just too good and too difficult to pass up on. Again, I'm very curious to see where people go. We've heard Texas has reached out directly to Donovan Hunter. After we lost to South Carolina, I heard Don Staley say a few really nice things about Donovan Hunter, and I was like, oh, dope. Donovan's getting some praise from Don Staley. And then Staley kept going, and I was like, you keep your hands off our point guard, Don Staley. Like, stay the fuck away. And I mean, if Donovan Hunter transfers to South Carolina to play under Don Staley, can I like sit here on my fucking made up soapbox and be mad at her to go play for Don Staley as opposed to playing in the WCC? I don't know that I can be mad at her.
Scott Rueck,
but I can be mad at the system that created that to even be a virtual possibility in the first place. And I don't think that there's anything administratively that Oregon State really could have done. Let's remember, we were picked to finish 10th this year, and we had so many injuries last year. But, I mean, had Oregon State women's basketball gotten the same type of arrangement that baseball got to compete as an independent next year, just as a temporary thing, that will be a great what if going forward. What if it was just that? And it was like, you have to create your own schedule every week. You have to find people to play. You would essentially probably be able to create pretty close to a Pac-12 schedule to an extent. It might be, the calendar might be flipped a little bit, but all of these programs of these institutions who are bolting for the Big Ten and the Big 12, who clearly had no input on those institutions leaving, are scrambling and trying to find more West Coast opponents. It would have been doable. It would have been doable. And it's hard to make that decision in September or October, 18 months before, 15 months or so before that's actually going to take place. But that's a great what if to think about. And I just don't know. I hope that there aren't a ton more dominoes, but it just kind of feels like it is. And playing in the WCC is just the reason for it, because that is something we've been told multiple things, and no one has been like, oh, yeah, no, the WCC didn't factor into my decision at all, or didn't factor into their decision at all. It's the WCC, and that sucks because we're not a WCC team. We shouldn't be.
Well, and our players aren't WCC players. Mm-hmm. But I know there's the argument of like, yeah, look at UConn. What kind of conference do they play in? Is that like do they have a ton of clout? Like, is that giving them a lot of notoriety because of that? And I get that argument. I mean, Gonzaga men's, it's different, it's men's, women's, but like, same idea. Oregon State was on their way there. I don't think that Oregon State women's hoops was ready to be a big enough brand right now to go independent and successfully pull that off in the eyes of everybody else. And then the eyes of everybody else and their opinions really do inform the players' opinions. Like I you can't feel like that is, you know, stupid or whatever. Like, I mean, these players are young adults, and the perception of them matters. And they're young adults were in you know, a sport or any sport where perception does matter, because when word gets out, well, yeah, like Reagan Beer's dominant in the WCC, right? Like that carries weight. There's no arguing against that, especially in a sport where there was a shit ton of people who watched the women's tournament, and props to you if you tuned in. Glad if this was your first time. I'm glad you did. Women's basketball might be one of my, if not my favorite sport, but I get why it dominoed to players fearing for their livelihoods by playing in the WCC. And I think that that's what it all comes back to, is no one's going to know me, or everyone's going to disregard my accomplishments because of this. And the Oregon State brand right now isn't carrying enough weight yet to be a program that can run an independent schedule, that could go to a lesser conference, quote, end quote, but no disrespect to the WCC, but like can go to a lesser conference. And I think and there's going to be no one arguing against that with what the Pac-12 women's basketball conference looked like,
especially
this year.
Like it's relegation.
Yeah. Yeah, I think this one's the tougher one to just decipher through. I don't know. I mean, they were on the cusp.
Right.
They were literally, they were so close. I mean, they hung with South Carolina better than any team in the tournament. South Carolina clearly had no problem coasting through the Final Four. So, not to say that Oregon State was gonna win the next two and become champions, but like the odds would be in our favor.
Right. It was a 4-point game with 4 minutes to go. And
if we were to
the fact that it just ends there. But I mean, you said a lot of smart stuff. Like, it's the same thing with Damien. Like, being a martyr for Oregon State only pays so much. Like, financially, yes, but also like figuratively, literally, spiritually, mentally, and everything. So I don't know. It's hard because like I have so much, like I feel so grateful for what the team did this year. And I think, I mean, Talia's taking the brunt of it right now. And what I would say to Talia is that it's because of the role in which you occupied and the amount of hope and the amount of joy that you exuded. That's why you're being lashed out to in that way. And it's unfair. And a lot of fans are doing it in a non-constructive way. But I think it had been a long time since Oregon State fans believed in the fairy tale ending and believed that the fairy tale ending could apply to them. And you were the rare type of person who made that fairy tale seem like a reality. And I think some people are responding to that gratefully and in the constructive way, but many, many more are not. And that has to suck as a young person, especially someone who's poured so much into Oregon State. But there's just not really a clean way for that breakup to happen, given the state of everything. And again, like we talked about with Damien, this is the latest thing on a fan base that is continually having everything taken away from them. So for any other players who hop in the portal in the next few weeks, I don't know if we might get to a point where like Oregon State fans are just fatigued beyond belief and it's just like whatever. But before we get there, I think there'll be a lot more outrage. And there's a long list of villains to hate, but there's not really a way to communicate that. And that's what's hard about this, is a program that's done great things and deserves to exist and to take that next shot. But because of external powers that be, that doesn't get to happen, and no one's really receiving that well. I don't know that you can. I don't know that you can receive that well.
No, I don't think as a fan that you can. And of all of our programs, women's hoops has developed maybe the best fan culture.
Absolutely, I love going to women's basketball games.
By far.
Right.
The way in what was perceived and is probably still likely. Like, again, I think fans, including myself, have a hard time separating sincerity for their players' appreciation for the fans.
Yeah, it's complicated.
And their support and their personal business and what's best for them when it comes to athletics, when it comes to education, when it comes to professional prospects. Like, it's hard to separate that stuff, but I don't think either one of them is phony because one might be perceived to be more real than the other, whether it's in action or inaction. Like, somebody who doesn't leave Oregon State, that clearly, as seen today, doesn't mean that they have this like broad loyalty and affinity to Oregon State fans. You might perceive it that way. You might believe it to be true, but that is not reality. And vice versa is clear. Somebody who has no affinity to Oregon State fans, it doesn't mean they're going to bolt. They might just be here to be heads down and get their shit done. So, like, at this point, like, we have to just remove ourselves from the entire equation. As a fan, the only way to appreciate fully what our university is doing athletically is to completely remove yourself from your association and affinity to these players. And I'm not to say don't support them, but you have to also come with the caveat of, by supporting them, I'm supporting the Beavs, and the name on the back of the jersey that I'm supporting may no longer be supportive of me, and those names will rotate through them. And I have to shout out my Nana. Shout out Nana, big time, long time Oregon State women's hoops fan, super fan, and she's put it into perspective in a bit, like, saying that this kind of stuff with Timea, with Talia, with any other potential dominoes that are coming soon, and from what we've heard, none of them want the WCC. All of them are essentially on the block, and it wouldn't be surprising. Today's Tuesday, April 9th. It wouldn't be surprising to see the entire main rotation in the portal
by the time this goes live.
Essentially, yeah, by Friday was the quote. So that hurts to hear as a fan, because you care about these players, because they contributed to a culture of fan appreciation that maybe wasn't built by them, but they bought into it. They played along with it. They did their part. So, maybe it was Ruick with the right intentions, I believe. Maybe it was the athletic department, whatever. Having fans care about players was a good strategy. It will not.
It should be a good strategy again someday. I don't know if it is, but
I don't know if it'll ever be, but it was a good strategy, and then the tides turned. But as Nana said, that with everything that's going on, it felt like it was only a matter of time that she was sure that Scott, had the same feeling with the new conference, potentially a whole new team next year. But as she said, quote, Scott can turn a pig's ear into a slick purse. I don't know what that means, but it sounded so good. And I was like, yeah, damn right he can. So, yeah, I think he can still mold this program into a winning program as long as he's still here. But I feel like we're just jinxing shit because we said last week, talking about the players coming back and, their loyalty and yada, yada, yada. So who knows? Who knows?
Yeah. All right. Well, how about we talk about a few nice things about baseball, and then we can get out of here.
We have to talk about men's hoops real quick.
What?
I know.
This episode hasn't been sad enough.
Okay. Jordan Pope, thanks for your contributions. I might remember them, maybe a shot or two.
I
good luck.
I guess we didn't talk about this last time. It's been
Be gone.
So yeah.
Be gone.
Pope, Bilodeau, Acano,
Tyler Bilodeau.
Mariel.
I don't know. Were you all right? Well, what were you? And I think you got pretty good. But yeah, be gone.
He did.
Thanks for your contributions.
We'll be good somewhere. Pope will be good somewhere.
Everybody else that entered the portal, I couldn't even tell you where your spot was in the rotation because, one, we don't really have a good rotation, because, two, we didn't have a great team. So, whatever. Honestly, whatever.
It was an alternation rather than a rotation.
Yeah, exactly. With men's hoops, man, it sucks to see Jordan Pope go to the portal because I do think he's a talented player. I think that he's had some big moments. I also want to be. Look, Terry. I'm turning heel now because, and I said this in our private texts. Like, I don't know how much affinity and fandom I can really carry for players anymore at this point. Like, I feel like that's broken for me.
I suggested Belligerent Beef should just maybe go dark, and instead of being a positive bastion of hope and wellness, we should just take a 180 and go.
You want a 180?
We could do a 180. Like, we could do a 180 and be like New York morning sports talk or some shit like that. We won't be that good at it, but we could do it.
Oh, well, let's try it out.
Maybe.
Let's try it out.
Try it out for 30 seconds right now if you want to.
Deal. Okay. Jordan Pope. As talented as that man was on the court.
John Stocks, Jordan Pope.
No. I didn't see him come through except for one time to actually help lead this team to a victory. Sorry. I don't think that leadership was there. I think the talent is there, but the leadership was not. This is ignoring coaching. I'm just not going to pin anything on that at this point because there's no...
The coaching was perfect, clearly.
Yeah. Yeah.
If anything, that dark, negative sports radio does, it doesn't blame coaching.
Yeah. I'm not even blaming or letting coaching off the hook. I'm just blatantly bypassing that right now. And I don't see Jordan Pope as the guy who was going to save Oregon State basketball to begin with.
He's not Jon Snow.
I don't think that he even has, at this point in his career at least, the fortitude to lead a team from the depths to being a winning program. And I never really felt that because there were games that he tried to take over that slipped away, that he could not keep the lead, that he shot them out of victories. And while the talent in the entertainment loss is large, I don't know how much it will change the outcomes of victories going forward. Tyler Bilodeau, I think you were good. I think you got better. But I also didn't ever feel any impact from you on the court while you were playing. And most of the time I thought that you just couldn't rebound very well. I think your hands might be small. And then who else? I don't know. Akano. I didn't even know you were still on the team either. I liked you. I loved some of your quotes. But
yeah,
but
you were 3 years.
Yeah, you were a good quote
too.
You were a good quote. Yeah, and that's all I'll say. And then Shoal, what? What's wrong, man? Shoal, why are your legs so long and you're not good at basketball? If my legs were that long, I promise you I'd be scoring 20 points a game with 20 boards. How are your legs 6 feet long and you still can't contribute? I don't know. I think that this team was broken. I think that the players were thrusted into the wrong roles. I think that
you said you weren't blaming coaching. Thrust in the wrong roles is blaming coaching.
Well, no, I'm just saying I don't think that that they thrust in the wrong roles because there was no one else to put in them. What else are you gonna do, right? No one stepped up. No one improved the team. They might have gotten better individually, but no one improved the team. So where are we starting at? Where are we starting back at? Square one again? We never left square one with these guys.
I don't know if we've stepped to square one.
Yeah, we're at square zero or square zero squared. That number doesn't exist. I think it's just zero. Yeah.
But yeah, Bilodeau, that was a very Wally Zerbiak description you gave. Just points in the box score. But I didn't realize.
Did you do anything today? Oh, whoa, you did. I guess.
Okay, you got 18 points and a 12-point loss to the Wizards. Cool.
Yeah.
Thanks.
I don't want to drag these guys.
Padding the box score again.
I do appreciate.
You just dragged all of them.
I know.
I don't mean to drag these guys after dragging all of them.
Yeah. So take my word for it. I don't mean to drag you. If you're listening, tuning in, Jordan, if you're Tyler. I'm not dragging
not listening
you,
to this shit.
But I am.
They're not listening to this shit.
I am. And this is why the response, even from Beaver Nation, from the Beaver Fam, was
No one seems to be up in arms about any of the men's basketball transfers.
Was surprisingly but unsurprisingly muted by these transfer announcements. It was like, okay.
We all knew.
All right, yeah. One, we all knew it was coming, but also two, I think we all evaluated that this, like, again, can't drop us any further from where we were with them contributing. So, fine, blow it up. Start over. I don't give a shit. Like, thanks, but no thanks. You see you later, whatever. Let the door hit you on the way out. These were the transfers that have had the least impact on me as a fan. They're the transfers that maybe have the most positive upside, at least potentially, because there's only one way to go, and that's up.
That's up.
That is up. And
up to square zero.
The one thing I know is the Pope is no longer praying for Jordan Pope.
R.I.P. that meme.
Yeah, the meme's gone. And yeah, whatever. Like, go do your thing, because every single transfer I've ever seen.
If we got a player whose last name was Cardinal, that would be sick. Remember Brian Cardinal?
Oh yeah.
Then we could use like Cardinals praying for. Yeah, that'd be sweet. Okay, that's what.
More than one person. I'm only way more powerful than one.
Put me in charge of Oregon State men's basketball recruiting. I'm recruiting guys just off of name and meme relatability.
Yeah,
we gotta do baseball very quick. Baseball won tonight while we were talking, JP. So good things can happen to Oregon State University.
Yeah,
the Beavs beat the Pilots 11-8.
Perspective.
6-game winning streak overall. Their 20th consecutive win at Goss. That's fun. How fun!
I would love to get to Goss, but
everyone who was burning their Goss Got 'em shirts and their Mitch Canham jerseys and their record copies of O State Ballas after the 0-2 trip to Irvine. Relax for another week. Relax.
Ain't no one burning a Goss Got 'em tee.
I don't think anyone's burning a Goss Got 'em tee. That was hyperbole. Probably hyperbole. Hyperbolically. Hyper-probably.
I can't do that.
It's okay. Travis Bazzana, as we mentioned, Oregon State's all-time leader in home runs and total bases, as the Beavs beat the Pilots 11-8, and we're back on the upswing of being one of the best teams in college baseball. If you missed out on these last 6 wins at Goss Stadium, don't fret, because 3 more wins at Goss Stadium are coming up this weekend. The Beavs start a Friday through Sunday series against the Nerds, Stanford, ACC. See you later, Stanford, starting April 12th, this Friday at 6 p.m., Saturday at 5 p.m., and Sunday at noon. All 3 of those games at Goss, where the Beavs will got them.
Yeah.
And see if we can.
Speaking of Stanford, not to revert back to other previous segments, but like Tar Vanderveer retired.
Yeah, that's big news.
Yeah,
that would have been. That'd be a big roadblock if the Pac-12 was going to stick around for another year.
Yeah.
Well, did she cite the collapse of the conference at all? Yeah, that would have.
No, but all the Twitter fodder I've seen is like, yeah, she didn't want to travel across the country either.
No one should. No one should traveling from Palo Alto to Clemson, South Carolina on a Tuesday and then up to fucking Cambridge, Massachusetts on a Thursday and then getting back at 4 a.m. on Sunday. It's not fun. So what are we doing? College athletics, you're drunk.
It's fun.
Go home and don't come back until you wake up and it's 2015 again. And then just keep what you have. Just keep it that way.
Hot tub
just
time
keep
machine.
It that way. Hot tub time machine would be amazing right now. I wish we had it. JP, do you and I need to talk about anything else before we get out of here? That wasn't a lead-in.
No.
I'm actually asking.
No. My answer is no.
No. Speaking of Oregon State baseball, we didn't really get to talk about this, but I pulled this amazing Adley Rutschman card when I was at the Twins game.
Sponsored by Seam-Headed.
Sponsored by Seam-Headed. We're going to do a giveaway with this card. All you need to do is DM us a screenshot of you giving Belligerent Beavs a 5-star review on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcast. If you've already done it, you can still do it.
Yeah.
This can be an old review. It doesn't matter. If you've supported us in the past, or you're supporting us now, or will support us in the future, I don't know. Just DM us on Twitter a screenshot of the 5-star review you've left. It doesn't even need to be a verbal review. It can just be confirmation of you clicking all 5 stars and hitting submit or whatever shows up on the screen, and we will randomly pick a winner to send this Adley Rutschman card. We might have some other Oregon State sports card giveaways that we'll give to a top 2 or top 3, whatever. And yeah, shout out Seam Headed, as you mentioned, JP. We'll happy to be partnering with them for another baseball season. We might have some Seam Headed giveaways coming up soon in the baseball season. Maybe a Seam Headed gift card or 2. We don't know what's possible. We don't know anything. We clearly don't know anything. But yeah, Oregon State baseball is still playing games. Get to Goss this weekend. 6-game winning streak. Again, reasserting themselves as one of the top teams in the nation. And yeah, sad times, but we'll get through it together.
Yeah.
Beaver Fam. This is why we exist. This is why we're here. This is why we have a rallying cry that you can't spell without hope.
What's our discount code for
Seam Headed? Chop 'em.
And what kind of discount do you get?
The nicest discount in the game. 31% off. That's what that means. 31% off equals nicest discount in the game.
So wait, what is the actual cost percentage-wise with that discount code?
I believe it's 69% of 100% of the original retail cost.
The universe just works in mysterious ways.
We didn't ask for that either. We're just like, we got to give our fans a discount code. And they're like, okay, yeah, here it is.
Yeah. I got
like, we wanted to be Chop 'em. And they're like, yeah, okay, cool. And then Benny typed in Chop 'em at checkout and was like, oh, 69% noise.
Yep.
Oh my God. This had a lot of really sad, depressing undertones, but this still was a pretty nice episode of the Belligerent Beavs podcast, if I do say so myself. Thank you for rocking with us tonight. Again, please reach out to our dear friend Benjamin Lawrence, Sebastian Wehage, and just let him know you're thinking about him. Tell him he's dope. Tell him he's hot. Tell him his hair looks cool.
Yeah.
Tell him his glasses.
Tell him he's got a good coif.
He's always wearing cool glasses in cool ways. I want to know how to wear cool glasses in cool ways.
Yeah, every time I ever wore glasses, I had to pop the lenses out because they didn't work for me, or they were sunglasses, and then it did not look cool.
He's got great rims. He went to the Russell Westbrook school of wearing cool glasses in cool ways. So yeah, shout out Benny, we love you, and we'll have you back on the show next week. Can't wait to see you again. Of course, joining me in Portland, the man on the ones and twos, steering the ship, JP Bertram. He is on Twitter at the TreelJ. That's at the _Treel_J, because he's too Treel to be real. And on Instagram at JP Bertram. My name is Terry Horseman, at Terry Horseman on Twitter, and at Terrence Horseman on Instagram.com. Give me, or Jay, or Benny, or all 3 of us a follow if you'd like to, and follow the whole goddamn show for gosh darn sake at Bellig Beavs on Twitter, at Belligerent Beavs everywhere else, especially on YouTube, the YouTubes. We're getting YouTubular, putting more stuff out on YouTube, or at least trying to. Some weeks are better than others, but who knows? Maybe we'll pull an Oregon State athlete and just quit and stop doing it and do it for another school. Just kidding. That's not going to happen. Come on, without humor, there's no way through. This has been the 136th episode of the Belligerent Beavs podcast. It is Tuesday, April 9th. Thank you so much for tuning in. We'll be back next week. Please, in the meantime, rate and review, like, and subscribe. Give us 5 stars wherever you get your podcast. And please take the time to share the show with a friend. And when you do that, screenshot it and send it to us for this awesome Adley Rutschman Tops 2024 Stars of MLB giveaway. I'm putting it on the camera just in case this part makes it to YouTube. I don't know if it will, but here's the card. This is what it looks like. I don't know why I have another card behind it. It's so cool. Look how shiny.
That's what it looks like. It's shiny.
That's what it looks like. It's shiny.
It's the stars of the game. It's the stars of the game
shiny
tops, right?
In your den or your living room or your office or whatever.
Yeah, Stars of
MLB.
MLB.
Adley. Yes.
Yeah.
Everett, the mini Bebe pulled the same card.
He has just two. I found out tonight.
He has two?
Yeah.
We can't take his away from him because he's a 7-year-old and he'll cry if we do that.
Yeah.
But, I'm willing to give you this one. Mine. My only Adley Rutschman card currently. That's how much I love you, Beaver Fam. And that is a sign that we can get through this together.
Let's get Adley to sign it.
Things are tough. Let's get Adley to sign it. Then do I have to give it away? It's worth a lot more if he signs it. We'll figure that out.
I'll give you one of Ev's
later.
cards.
Perfect. Let's get him to sign all 3. Anyway. I know times are tough, Beaver Fam, but we'll get through this together. Or we won't. We might not. we're taking the turn to negative town now. We already said that. But if we don't, we'll still be here, drinking hams and shit, having fun. And there's value in that too. Am I right? I don't know. But whatever happens in the meantime, just remember, you can't spell chop 'em without hope. So, chop 'em.
Chop 'em.
Belligerent Beeves podcast, making a pig's ear into a slick purse since 2021, baby.
Yeah. Onward and upward, Beaver Fam.